Andrew Power. I'm the Associate Consultant with Right Foundation. You're a community interest company, and we've had the privilege or the pleasure of being able to work with Elaine and Craig. Introduce them. Elaine McNish and Craig Blaine are the directors at Move Consulting, who are a learning development organisation specialising in physical activity related behaviour change. And apparently between them have over 45 years of combined experience. So that's even exceeding my own. Commissioning, design, and delivering physical activity programs that have inspired people to move over the years. And I think it's been a privilege working with them recently, and since setting up Move Consulting as well, and they've been busy with a number of other key clients that I think we're going to talk a little bit about in a few minutes. But today apparently or recently marks a mini milestone for you guys, achieving 6 months of operation, which is early days. I'm sure you'll agree, but we've deciding to take a brave step like this and creating a new business in the midst of a global pandemic might be considered to be a strange move. So that's the first question to you. What was the inspiration behind creating Move Consulting?
For me, it's a case of the inspiration, firstly, kind of setting up my own thing's always been on the bucket list to do. But that wasn't really the main driver. The main thing is I've had a life and a career so far of being physically active, promoting physical activity, working in that kind of area and that space. And I'm very lucky that being physically active is something that's come kind of natural to me. It's something that's been very easy to engage with, whether that be through playing sport or being a pet owner, to kind of taking the dogs for a walk and things around there. And through the different roles that I've had in my career, I've become very aware that the things that I found quite easy to do, i.e. engaging in an active lifestyle, aren't as easy for as many people as we would like them to be. So very much my passion and the vision that we have at Move is to create that future where physical activity is part of the fabric of our society. It's just what we do. And that's a case of wanting to try and make activity more engaging and make it fit in a way that it works for the people that would like to be more active more often. So that's a bit of the kind of vision, if you will, and the drive behind it. What we wanted to make sure is, as you mentioned, a global pandemic's just kind of, well, we're still in the midst of it in the time that we're recording this here. So there were lots of people within the sport and physical activity kind of area, if we call it that, that were seeing a lot of change. A lot of organisations, unfortunately, were making people redundant, organisations changing shape. And one thing that I know I've seen, and Elaine, you'll probably be able to talk about this more in your experience as well, is the shift and the transition of people kind of leaving and coming to our sector. And one thing that I wanted to achieve through Move is to capture and retain some of that expertise and learning. So in whatever way I can help organisations to make physical activity more engaging and make it fit for the audiences they want to engage. That's the drive behind what we aim to do here at Move. So, Elaine, have you got anything you wanted to add?
Yeah, I mean, in terms of my relationship with physical activity, it's probably been more challenging. So I wasn't necessarily naturally good at sport, as it were, growing up. And then I've had a number of conditions that I've had to manage, including cancer and various other things that have meant that physical activity is it's always been important to me, but it sometimes has been quite challenging. And I've always, even when I did my sports science degree, it was the health side that was more of an interest to me. But I suppose when I did my sports science degree, the health really side was very limited in the training that you got. But that's kind of where my career has ended up. And from my perspective, it was I think throughout that career, because there hasn't always been the information available in the training, I made loads of mistakes. Loads of them. And I think it struck home at me. I went to a conference not long ago, and I heard people having the same conversations that I'd heard 10 years ago, 15 years ago, and probably making some of the same mistakes that I had. And I kind of thought, actually, it might be useful to share some of that learning so that people don't reinvent wheels, and hopefully help somebody unpick a problem or solve a problem that they've got in terms of delivery of projects. Because I've learned a heck of a lot from delivering lots of different projects in different settings for lots of different organisations. So it was kind of that, can we do that? And obviously at the bottom of that is this, I know what being active going through cancer treatment did for me, and has done in other aspects of my life. And so I know the benefits it can hold, and it's just trying to make sure that people can be supported in the right way to do that, and the workforce is central to that.
So there's really the meeting of two great minds really there in terms of and experience, in terms of the experience, just the personal experiences you've had as well. And so now that you've joined forces in that sense, what have been some of the highlights in this first 6 months for you both?
Well, in terms of setting out in business, one of the things is really key. As you mentioned, we're 6 months in, and that's why we wanted to record this video, to kind of put a stamp and make a mark. It feels like a bit of a milestone for us. And in that initial phase, any organisation that wants to work with us or highlights us as somebody that could help them in the challenges that they're facing and to develop those solutions, it feels like a huge celebration in itself. So everything's been a highlight so far. But there have been some ones that have stood out for us. At the heart of what we do, one of the things is workforce development. We describe ourselves as a learning and development organisation at the heart of it. And yourself, Andrew, with your connections to the Wright Foundation, that's one of the highlights for our organisation so far. And there's two reasons why the Behaviour Change Solution series, I would say, is a highlight for us. So we have a series of 1 hour webinars that effectively present the concept and theory of behaviour change in, firstly, an understandable way and a practical way. That's what we really wanted to get across in what we delivered. So as you'll know, Wright Foundation predominantly have an audience, a workforce audience in physical activity professionals, exercise referral specialists and so on. And we wrote the learning catered for that market, and we wanted to get across this concept of behaviour change. So make what we talk about simple and make it practical, easy to apply and understand. And the feedback that we've had from, I think it's over 200, maybe even closing into 250 people attended or attendances across that series so far. And we're only halfway through it, which is amazing. The feedback has spoken to those two things as well as others. And on the whole, it's been very positively received as well, which, again, being new in something, and we've got this idea, firstly getting organisations coming and saying, we see what you're doing and we think you can add value. That's a big pat on the back and a gratification in itself. And then the feedback genuinely coming from those that are attending our sessions, are speaking to the things that we're aiming to do, tells us that we're on the money in terms of the design, and we're on the money in terms of the delivery, which is absolutely brilliant. And it's going from strength to strength. I would define that project as itself as a real success. Yeah. So a definite highlight.
Just to add to comments as well, is that just being able to work in partnership with yourselves, we knew that we needed to do this work for a long time yet. You know, it's been the last 3 or 4 years, it's been something that's been on our minds in terms of behaviour change and the support, and it just seemed to magically all come together at the right time, that you became available, and this work was a real need, and we were still in that kind of pandemic learning phase where lots of people want to develop themselves further and develop their skills further, and we just decided to go for it, and I think if you hadn't been there, it probably wouldn't have happened. So it really made it happen for us. So Elaine, what have your highlights been over the last 6 months?
I think for me, there's the concept that you raised around the sort of evidence into practice is really core interest for us, and also that idea that it's about trying to make that evidence pragmatic in terms of the application of it. So accepting that we don't have the evidence for everything. There are some real challenges in collecting evidence, but also making sure that what we do is grounded and robust in that respect. I've really enjoyed the work we've been doing with the Chartered Society of Physiotherapy. So we've been asked to look at how physios incorporate strength, messaging and advice and support for patients. And we've used the COMBI model, so the model that's been developed that looks at capability, motivation and opportunity, and that's allowed us to try and define behaviours. So it's founded in a model of practice. But then what's really good about that model is you then speak to the physios and you spend a lot of time understanding and co-creating the identification of those behaviours with the physios. So you get a really good feel what the challenges that those physios have in terms of practice and in terms of bringing that strength message into that practice. And so what will be produced will be very pragmatic, because I think from my perspective, it's that idea about being able to upscale what people do. So you can have some really good examples of really good projects when lots of resources are chucked at people. So when there's lots of support and everything, and then when you try to upscale it in the real world, as it were, then that can all fall down because the day job gets in the way or whatever. So whatever we do has to be totally embedded in current practice for it to work.
It's a good couple of examples, but what are your plans for the future then, the next 6 months and beyond?
It's very much listening to the organisations and listening to the individuals that are part of our networks, because one thing that we're very mindful of is we need to take, and we do take, a solutions-based approach to what we do. So it's not about creating a product and going out there and trying to push and push and push with that, although there will be some elements where that will work. It's just about continuing to network and listen to our client base, which is growing. And above and beyond that, what we know is that physical activity and health, again, back to the current situation of living through a pandemic, is, as ever, a really high priority. So it's making sure that we're there to know and to support our partners, basically, to overcome those challenges.
So go on, give us some clues. What could you provide, or what do you think you might need to provide in the future then?
Well, the three things that we cover as an organisation are programme design. So in terms of the work that Elaine mentioned earlier on with the CSP, that project has been a real highlight and success for us. And that's phase one of bringing to life, with regards to the physical activity guidelines, the forgotten guidelines as they're deemed, being strength and balance. So we hope to see in the future that we can continue to support that area of work and cascade that learning broader. In addition to that, we're very, very interested in the social prescribing movement, if we can call it that, because that connection, and back to the first question you asked, Andrew, as to what the drive is, one of the observations that I've seen is there are almost three sectors: health, sport and physical activity. And those three, like a Venn diagram, cross over in some parts, but they speak a different language and they don't quite connect perfectly. So social prescribing feels like one of those things that could really gel things together and make it make sense. So some work in that space is certainly there. Elaine, how about you? Anything that you're looking forward to in the next month?
I think continuing with the training theme as well, but there are other aspects of training that we feel that we can contribute in terms of supporting practitioners on the ground to manage, develop, support projects, and help also. How do you design evaluations embedded in that as part of the process, but also supporting skill development in the sector. So I think there's a whole pile of areas there. And then, I mean, from my perspective, all the way through my career, I've kind of tried to join things up. It really frustrates me when you have 5 different conversations with 5 different organisations about the same thing. And I think we still have a role in joining people up so that we can get sort of clear strategic direction with everybody pulling in the same direction. And I'd like to be able to continue to do that in some way. I know it can be more challenging being a consultant and doing that than being embedded in an organisation, but in some ways that also is a strength because you sit back from it all a little bit, as opposed to when you're immersed in it. Sometimes you've got agendas that you've got to work to. So I think there's a lot from there that we can work on.
But it's exciting, and I think particularly, you know, the skill set that you both have, and the mix of experiences, the wealth of experience that you're able to bring to the sector as well, I think can only benefit the sector, to have individuals like yourselves being purpose driven in terms of your work, and it's clear that there is a real purpose behind what you're doing. It's not just a business opportunity, and it's not just a day job or something to keep you out of trouble, Craig. But I think the sector has a lot to benefit from engaging with you, and good luck for the future.
Thank you. And
thank you very much, and cheers for taking the time.